Thank you, Laska Herlock, and thank you, Deputy Moynihan, for sharing your time. I too welcome the opportunity to speak tonight, and I acknowledge that this is a very technical bill. And I have to acknowledge the hard work that probably the backroom team that have been there preparing it to bring it to the floor here this evening. I'm probably going to speak to the bill in a different vein and in a completely different light, and I'm going to speak to it in relation to children. Because being spokesperson for Children and Youth Affairs, I have to acknowledge that the Ombudsman for Children, both North and South, for the last 2 years has held roundtable discussions, once in Croke Park and once in Newry, where we listen to the voice of the child. And when I talk about child, it's not child, it's young teenagers, young adults, as to how Brexit was going to impact on them. And they were very clear in what they felt that the ramifications of Brexit, be it a no-deal Brexit whatsoever, or any deal of a Brexit. And what they said was Brexit will impact profoundly on the island of Ireland, and that the current generation of young people will be those who will have to live with the decisions made during these negotiations. They also said that a hard border or any regression to violence of the past should be and has to be avoided at all costs. And the Good Friday Agreement is to be protected. Brexit must not be utilised to drive deeper societal divisions, and Brexit must not limit opportunities for those on the island of Ireland. Work, travel, study opportunities for all must be maintained. North-South cooperation and healthcare, education, policing, safety and child protection must remain, along with cross-border travel, and access to services must be guaranteed. And I must acknowledge that during all of the pieces of legislation that are going to come before us, that is what you are trying to, and we as a whole of government are trying to deliver on. Because I think, in all fairness, this is what the young people who might not have had a vote in Brexit, be it in this country or in Northern Ireland, but at the same time they are solely depending on us to bring forward legislation that will protect them and their livelihoods into the future. They talk about how many of them travel north and south for education and what ramifications in relation to their grant system and how it will impact on them, or how they will cross up and down on the train, or how they will come if their parents. One of the children spoke about their parent being separated, and one living in Southern Ireland and the other one living in Northern Ireland, and how they would travel over and back on a daily basis. And if one so chose to go to education in Queen's or Coleraine, how would that impact, and how would the grant system be paid? And you have addressed it there in section 5 of the legislation, which is welcome, because I think there needs to be clear understanding that we are going to protect the young people. Minister Sapone, when she came before us at the Children's Oireachtas Committee, she said while she doesn't have a real direct impact into how the legislation would have been drafted, but she feeds into so many other parts of it. And justice is a huge part that the Department of Children and Youth Affairs would feed into. And that would be in relation to care orders, or for children having to go to England into various forms of care. And normally, I think it's 10 children a year that sometimes have to go to the UK. And it is explained that under the Copenhagen, or 1 second, I just get it right now, under the recognition, sorry now, let's get it read right. I think it's the Brussels II agreement that children would be protected under. So I think that children need to, while they weren't part of the makings of this, they are really depending on us and how we roll it out into the future. Deputy Naughton spoke as well in relation to how rural Ireland is going to survive, because coming from East Galway, and we have the largest suckler herd in the country, the largest county with the suckler herd, I suppose agriculture is a huge issue. It's a huge fear within my constituency and right across the West, to be quite honest with you, as to where it's going to end, because there's a fear factor there. And there's a real fear factor because it's the fear of the unknown. And I can understand why at no stage we could have this debate earlier than we're having it, because at all times we had to give as much latitude and space to the UK to come to a reasonable conclusion that hopefully that we won't find ourselves in a no-deal scenario. but the fact that we're still talking Brexit is not a good deal for us whatsoever. So tourism and agriculture in the west and along the border Midlands region is a huge concern for us, and I think that's where we need to capitalise and plan for the future in relation to tourism, for the simple reason being is that is a market. I always say myself that the new trade into the East Galway and that area is people on their feet, and as to how we can get them in it and how we can market and how we can sell and brand ourselves, and the new hidden heartlands is a huge part to play on that. There's a new organisation, Taoiseach, you mightn't be aware of, developing at the moment, and that's a grouping called Grow Remote. And in all fairness, I'll explain what Grow Remote is. Grow Remote is where people choose to work from home. And these are people, if they have proper access to the internet, they can work from home. That gives them a lifestyle balance, but it will also give them the opportunity to actually earn a really good living working on the tech spectrum. A lot of them are graphic designers, some of them are web designers and programmers, but they can work for multinational companies and based anywhere in the world, and they can work for them from their own home. And it provides them with also, it cuts down on climate change, as in it doesn't, affect climate change, but it gives them the opportunity to work. And this is one of the areas how we can keep parts of the rural Ireland that might be hugely impacted from a Brexit area alive. And how can we do that? And it was what I said at committee a week ago was perhaps we should look at where guard stations have closed down or where OPW have buildings, that where we see that there is investment on the plus side of a Brexit positioning, that you could see industry coming to us because we're an English-speaking country, and we should look at the opportunities that are on the other side of it. And I think that as a government, perhaps we could look at the likes of buildings that the OPW have that they could actually open or make available for people who wish to work from home or wish to work from rural communities, that has a sufficient connectivity to broadband that would hold them there. And I think it would be absolutely fantastic, because we need to show a lifeline to the rest of Ireland as well, that we are open for business. And finally, in relation to Brexit, I think really the message that needs to go out, I think the real message that needs to go out is that we are all working together. And I think it was very unfair earlier on for certain deputies to make big sweeping statements, and they themselves having passed the opportunities in various parliaments and in various positions to take up their decision that could have averted an awful lot of this. They have a position and they chose to walk away from it. This could have been avoided a long number of months ago if people had worked together in Stormont, had taken up their positions in Westminster and avoided the position that we had got into, because it was a small number of votes in the very beginning that could have avoided this whole scenario. And members of this House have an impact on that. Gormaíle maithagah.